First of all, ask you, are we absolutely sure there will be a meaningful vote on the Prime Minister's deal on Tuesday?
Yes, and good morning, Andrew. And I think it's too soon. I've been talking to 4 European foreign ministers over this weekend. I think it's too soon to say that this process has run into the sands. But if we're going to get this over the line, there needs to be realism on both sides. On the UK side, those of us who strongly believe that we must implement the referendum result need to recognise that we can't wish away the parliamentary arithmetic. And if it's not this deal, it's likely to be something less appealing, less representative of what people voted for. People worry about being trapped in the customs union by the back door, but we could end up in the customs union by the front door if we get this wrong. But that realism also needs to come from the European side, because people sometimes make the comparison to a divorce, but divorcing couples rarely end up living next door to each other, and we will remain Europe's next door neighbour. And it is in Europe's strategic interest to make sure that we remain the best of friends. We're their biggest trading partner. And that's why I think with that realism, it is possible to find an outcome that works for everyone, but it's going to need a lot of work.
When you say we might stay in by the front door, do you mean that we might negotiate away the red lines, and as Theresa May said in her Grimsby speech, we might end up with a form of Brexit which was very soft, involved the customs union and so on?
Well, this is what I mean by saying we can't wish away the parliamentary arithmetic. And
so Parliament could push us to that position, could push you to that position.
If the deal fails, then in the end, the government has to obey the law and Parliament's responsible for the laws. And that's why we have an opportunity now to leave on March the 29th or shortly thereafter. And it's very important that we grasp that opportunity, because there is wind in the sails of people trying to stop Brexit. And I just want to make this point, Andrew, because it's a very important one. If you want to stop Brexit, you only need to do 3 things: kill this deal, get an extension, and then have a second referendum. And within 3 weeks, those people could have 2 of those 3 things. And as we heard from John McDonnell now, quite possibly the third one could be on the way through the Labour Party. And so we are in very perilous waters, and people who want to make sure that we really do deliver this result need to remember that if it fails, people aren't going to afterwards say it's this person's fault or this group of people's fault. They're going to say there was a party that promised to deliver Brexit. We put them into number 10 and they failed. And the consequences for us as a party would be devastating.
So if her vote goes down, Theresa May would choose to renegotiate a different kind of deal.
Well, I don't want to talk about what happens if her vote goes
down. She has.
Well, the reason I don't want to talk about it is because if we get involved in that kind of speculation, then I think it makes it less likely the deal will get through. And we are all focusing, and we're hoping very much we'll get some improvements to the backstop that will make that possible. But the stakes are very high.
A couple of very, very important constitutional questions. If it goes down and the Commons votes to take no deal off the table, in your view, is the government bound by that vote?
Well, the Prime Minister has said that she will listen to what Parliament says in that respect. But
I don't want slightly different. Is she bound by that vote?
Well, she has said she will listen to it, and she's a woman of her word. And that's really why it's the case that if the deal doesn't go through, what we are going to end up with, I think, is something much less appealing to people who want to honour the referendum result. So this is a very big moment.
If there is a vote on the floor of the House of Commons to take no deal off the table, how will you vote?
Well, I have made up my mind how I'd vote in that situation. But again, I don't want to get drawn into that, because I think if the whole debate is about...
but
let me explain why. Yeah, but if the whole debate is about how this or that cabinet minister will vote in this or that situation, then I think we make it less likely that we will get the deal through. But I'd be very clear... I will say this. I'd be very clear from the outset that I don't think we should be taking no deal off the table. I think it's very important that if we're going to get the deal we want, we keep no deal on the table.
Same question really about an extension, because everyone now seems to think it's almost inevitable there's going to be a short extension. Do you agree with that?
Well, if we get the deal through this week, then we can leave either on the 29th of March or very shortly thereafter. There might need to be a short period of time for what's called a technical extension to get the necessary legislation through. If we don't, we will end up in Brexit paralysis. And my appeal to my colleagues is to think about what our constituents want, because they want to get Brexit over and done with. You can see in the papers this morning, there is an overwhelming public desire to move on. And that is not just about because they're fed up with it. It's because actually they want to bring the country together after a very divisive period, and that's what we have to do.
So we're in the position where it is likely, despite all your best hopes, that this deal goes down again. Presumably she brings it back yet again, and that we then get votes on delaying and on taking no deal off the table. If those go against the Prime Minister, she is bound by those. And at that point, in effect, I suppose she's admitting that in her speech as well, you have more or less lost the initiative when it comes to these negotiations. You have lost the authority of Parliament.
Well, that is the risk you take. But also, let's look at the opportunity we have. We have a deal on the table that means that we can leave the EU, that can deliver us control of our money, our borders, our laws. It has the backstop, which we're trying to improve at the moment, but it delivers.
Deal, David says he was Brexit secretary. He says this is one of the worst deals any government has ever proposed.
Well, in any deal, you have to make compromises, but this deal delivers the vast majority of what people voted for. And the question that everyone has to ask themselves is, if we take this deal, could we go on to deliver everything we're seeking? And the answer is we can. The negotiations will be very tough over the next 2 years, but we will have left the EU. We'll be able to move on to the next stage, and that's what people at home want now in this situation.
We understand what you want. Do you think a delay is now the most likely outcome?
Well, I hope it isn't, but it depends on Parliament, and it also depends on the European Union. And the point I would make is that, and this is borne out by my conversation with European foreign ministers, that a delay is not in the interest of the EU either. They don't want the shadow of Brexit hanging over them. They've got lots of other things that they want to deal with, and that's why this is a very important moment for us. There is a risk and a possibility that we end up losing Brexit if we get the votes wrong in the next couple of weeks, and I think that's something that in their hearts most MPs know would be a very big mistake.
Let me